They always put up this moderation makes everyone feel safe. Yes, I'm aware and I'm fixing it now. How silly. Hold please, I'll be right with you. Thanks for being here. There we go. Hopefully that'll keep some of the trolls away. How sad is it? I'm a grown person and I have bullies online and in my everyday real life. It's just bizarre to me. I'm sorry. Hey, Jen here. I hope everybody is doing well. I am still playing with my devices, so thank you for your patience there. And now I'm playing with titles a little bit, so thank you for hanging in there with me and just spending some time with me. Today is hair oil day, and I chose Indian hemp gel or something. I don't know. Anyway, it's great. I love it. So I'll wash it later, but bring on the insults. That's why I fixed the trolling thing. Again, it's sad that some of us are grown and we have online and real life bullies. So the topics for today's discussion, if you want to hang out for them, I have a link in the description box next to my disclaimers for a Reddit thread. We're going to go over some online chatter regarding current events. I may change the title of this video depending on how far we get there, but that's where we're starting. And then, as I like to combine some of the videos now, especially since some of us are stuck inside this winter because of the Arctic blast and everything, the next part of the video is going to be jumping back to what is called the Kolbrin Bible. I'm not telling you to believe it except to receive it as truth, but I believe that in stories there are moral lessons oftentimes and things we can learn and take away from them. And creation stories I personally really enjoy, so I hope some of you enjoy and will hang out with me and continue from where we left off, which is going to be rather cool. We're going to get into the story of the first humans, and I've read ahead a little bit, and it's interesting. It talks about there being two different branches of humanoid creatures, people, creations, living on the earth, in the garden, Eden, whatever, paradise, at the same time, you know, coexisting. And one is kind of teaching the other at one point. So I'm really excited to like share that with you, because I think if nothing else, it can expand our understanding and understanding. Some of it is from Egypt. And again, Christ went there, Moses is from Egypt, so I do believe that we can learn from it. So the first thing we're going to be talking about, if you want to follow along and click on the link, is some online chatter. Now, ironically enough, I am not allowed to comment. I'm banned from commenting, but I'm banned from commenting in the Reddit subreddit Ohio. I don't know why. I'm from Ohio. Again, I've faced a lot of technical difficulties over the last several years, and that's actually a topic that's mentioned here indirectly, and we're going to delve into that too, because you should be aware of the things going on with your devices. For example, anything with a camera, you can go and watch people's videos on CCTV. Have you wondered how the compilation videos, they're getting videos that look like people's security cameras, and you're kind of like, why are they putting cameras there? Why are they showing this to us? Again, they're showing us the truth. If you get these devices with these cameras in them, and you don't go in and change this setting to private, you are allowing the public and often law enforcement to gather your data and your videos, the videos you have of the inside of your house and with your Ring camera outside. And there's a little chatter about this regarding law enforcement and people pretending to be law enforcement. I don't know, but again, I know firsthand, somebody told me that used to work on the turnpike, that uniforms went missing. And if you look back in the news stories, there's a lot of false stops, especially with females. And that gets into the Trail of Tears and trafficking. But right now, it tells me a lot that I never even commented in this. I just joined the group and I was banned from commenting. Again, it's like I have a Fisher-Price phone that somebody goes in and parental controls it, because getting regular information about what's going on is very conflicted. And you'll find things that are saying both. And you have to use your discernment and decide which one of these extremes is the truth, and is either extreme the truth. And are these bots? Are they military people on here to psych people out and push propaganda? As I read this thread, I hope that you can pick up on who is trying to persuade and manipulate people's perspective and actually, their reality. Augmenting reality is what a lot of this is about. And Alex Jones had it right when he said the war is about information. That's absolutely true. And not all information, not all intel is truth. So, interestingly enough, this post is still under review. Nobody has approved it to be posted yet. And the basic question, because this part was posted, it says, is this known to be occurring in Ohio? I would encourage everybody to go on to Reddit or just to punch in your city and state into Google and then put Reddit, or wait for the Reddit results and the Google results to, again, get an idea of the chatter out there, because some of this, especially if you're parents, should be concerning to you. That's why I do this, because I was negligent in monitoring my own children and what is being said in these groups and how far to the extreme they're trying to drive people and manipulate people's reality, and thus they're manipulating their actions at that point. So it says, is this known to be happening in Ohio? And I believe they're talking about ICE here. So let's see how this thread goes, because I'm not reading it for no reason. I've already read through it, and there's some telling information here. It starts, this person, the first commenter, and it's sorted by best to least. It says, my sibling had their entire complex inspected. Their maintenance went in every unit under the implication it was being inspected. They lived there for over 5 years, and nothing like this has happened, Youngstown, Ohio. They're saying they're allowing like local landlords and local police, in some cases, are operating with the federal branches, which is ICE, and they are allowing people into these units and apartment complexes without warrants. So let's continue reading. And that has 262 upvotes. This person says, I was wondering if the Gestapo was in town yet. I've heard rumors, but nothing concrete. And again, it doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left. What matters is if you're an American, if you're a human being, and if you are for family, God, and country. That's what matters at this point. And if you are for those things, then you need to be watching your children, monitoring them, and observing those around you, because America is being sold off piece by piece. And as that has happened, some of its people have been sold out. And it's not who you think it is. And we're going to get into more of that, but let's keep going. This person says, I saw in the Youngstown subreddit that the ICE presence has been increased last week. And this is only not even a day old. I live in a quadplex, but that's 4 apartments in one building, but haven't heard anything, right? 4, yes. Anything from my landlord about entering my apartment in, they say, Girard. That's a town about 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes away from me. Honestly, I'm not surprised at that, though. I'm going to tell my coworkers about this tonight. That has 17 upvotes. This person says, that's good to know. I will warn everyone I can. They are after everyone they can get their hands on, including citizens. Now, again, some of these commenters are pushing for extremes, and everyday Joes, everyday citizens like you and me, because my channel is super small. I have no sponsors. I'm just a person trying to communicate with other everyday people out there to talk about what's happening in our local areas directly, without going to or needing the mainstream media. And even at this point, sad to say, the YouTube media, because they've lost the plot. A lot of them have sold out, and you can tell by the videos they've posted from the last 5 years, if they flip their stance, if they're doing the hand sign, all of it. Like, it's covert too. It's in our face, but nobody notices it, and I don't know why. So this person says, this is very true. We were dating at work last week that they could come if they wanted to harass us. Not that they have reason to. I saw on the TikTok it is best not to respond to them verbally. They will use anything you say against you, so being silent is best. I would agree with that. Being quiet or silent in some cases is all you can do. A lot of people come against people that are public, that have public personas, especially like presidents, popes, kings, royalty. They say, well, they're not defending themselves. They must be guilty. But if you look at it from the other perspective, that's what Christ did to Herod. And if you look at it and you say, you know, sometimes you can't win. It doesn't matter what you say. If you defend yourself, they'll examine your body language and every little look and every little, you know, eye movement you make, and they'll still come against you. It doesn't matter whether you defend yourself or not. And sometimes defending yourself can just exacerbate the problem. So this person is saying it's best not to respond to ICE verbally, like just to stay out of the fray, right? Because a lot of this, again, is why are people without jobs out there? Well, they do have jobs. They're paid protesters, and that's been going on. You know, it's not a conspiracy. It's been going on since before I was awake and aware, like many years. So this says, oh, I don't know, like the one they ended in Minneapolis, the old guy they drug out of his house in boxers, the kid from Target they swept up and beat. All U.S. citizens. They're claiming people's birth certificates are fake, rounding up Native Americans. They have deported people with proper status. These domestic terrorist thugs do not care who they hurt, is what this person says. Now, again, the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. I'm reading you this not because I agree with what is being said, but because I think it's important to know how far extreme our neighbors and friends and family have taken some of this. And a lot of it is propaganda as well, to bring the younger generation into like this Charlie Kirk era of being super patriotic, right? Some people call that nationalism. I don't try to get into the politicking of it. I don't know enough to speak on that topic. So this person says, and again, this is Ohio, I don't know this exact situation, of course, but inspections are very common in rental communities. The owners need to be sure that their property is still in good livable condition. Let's hold right there. The person above them that I just read said that they were coming into their apartment unit without warrants under the guise of doing inspections, and that the landlords were letting them into their units, meaning their apartment units. Think back. In the last 5 or 10 years, when have landlords tried to make anything better? I'm talking about people in duplexes, suplexes, quadplexes. My landlord fixed everything once we moved out, the last one. Now, they're supposed to fix certain things like every 5 years, whether somebody's in there or not, especially if somebody's in there and they've been wearing down the carpet, you know, natural wear and tear. They're supposed to do that at their cost. So think back and think back to like all these shorts that you're seeing on YouTube. You're seeing people struggle living in their cars because they have to, not because they want to, still holding a job. Did those landlords care about how it looked? Most times they let it decline so that you move out. They can fix it up and raise the rent. That's what happened at the place we used to live at right now. They did not fix anything until we left. And then they jacked up the rent like $400 a month. It went from like $475, which was super cool. We were like grandfathered in, to $1,000, like $1,200. I kid you not. That's insane. And again, everybody thinks money is their goal. Money is not their goal. They make the money. They create the money. They create the crypto. They can go to an ATM and get money anytime they want it. That's not what this is about. That's not what any of this is about. It is, in big part, a spiritual war, but they'll never even tell their own cronies that. They don't want them knowing that. So this person says, across multiple buildings, it seems odd, especially given the unresponsiveness of maintenance when there actually are issues, like months for a caving ceiling, or right now people are talking about having no heat. When have the landlords cared? But now they're working with ICE, you say. And what's going on with all these people living in hotels, being able to afford living in hotels, talking about how they're targeted? How are you able to live in a hotel? I'm telling you, they're being paid. They flipped, they're working for whoever the enemy is here in America via the Trojan horse, because they had always been here. But now they have Americans who are pushing propaganda, pushing deception. They don't want us mobile and traveling, so they're going to tell us and exacerbate things, and they're going to make them seem worse than they actually are, like with this weather. They don't want you moving about, seeing what's happening in our country for real, real time. They are raping the land again. They are going after all the minerals. They are going after quartz is in like all your electronics. Sand from the bottom of the ocean is what makes the screens for your LCD TVs. People who have no, and you say, well, tree hugger or climate warming isn't real and all this stuff. Scripture and prophecy, Nostradamus, all tell us, the Hopi prophecies, all agree that if you get out of balance with nature and you take and take and take and you don't replace, you don't give, you don't plant trees, you're not doing these things, then that's going to, nature's going to have to do an overcorrection for itself. The creator will, there are laws that hold everything in place, right? Or else we'd be all floating around all the time. And there's that rumor now that we are going to go floating around in August. I don't even want to touch that one. There are, I've seen short movies about that. I think I shared one actually from YouTube. So that trope, it's a trope. Okay, so this person says, I get it. We're in strange times right now. This is the person who was saying, well, maintenance should be doing that. They're allowed to do that. Landlords have to do this. The other person's like, yeah, but they've not been doing this even when we are in dire need. So then the person originally responds again, well, I get it. We're in strange times right now. So I understand why we're skeptical. It really comes down to how the management company chooses to operate. Again, they're removing the entire concern and situation. This same thing sometimes, especially with women, will happen when you go to a doctor who's very old school and they want to blame everything on, oh, you're hysterical. Oh, it's your time of the month. Oh, it's your change. They don't actually listen to what you're telling them. They remove your concern, the topic of your concern, the problem, and they, it's condescending, it's patronizing, very. Take trees, plant trees. It's supposed to be a give and take situation for balance. Sheridan, AY. Sheridan Gay. Yes, I agree. I would absolutely agree. And see, it's so simple. We don't have to fight about Greta Thunberg and these fake people they put on television. We should all be able to understand basic common sense. If you're going to take something, you should replace it. And if you have to live off the land and you're foraging or it's tough times or whatever, you're only supposed to take one of every third. I know that. And I'm a city girl. I know these things. I educated myself. Be autodidactic. Do your own research. Okay, so let's continue to see what people are saying. It says, this person says, and there's a lot of deleted comments when they haven't even approved the original post. People are commenting anyway. I'm wondering if I'm just not allowed to see it. But again, I basically have Fisher-Price phone and internet. I understand that. Things are being hidden from me. You need to understand that I was some type of beta tester. It happened to me early because of who my loved ones are. They are on the other side. You all need to understand that this is happening. So we get into surveillance and stuff down here. This person says, yeah, the inspections we perform are always 5 minutes or less just to be sure the place isn't in a state of disrepair, uninhabitable, normal stuff. This person says they're common and low income, but they only do them to intimidate people and never actually fix anything. I've had that problem. When they come, I've told them about this problem over and over about our door not being able to shut. That's a legitimate concern. That's not a woman being hysterical. I pay to live here. I want the doors to lock and shut all the way. Several of the doors and the doorknobs are busted. They don't work. And in the one, I kid you not, it's rigged. So there's pieces of wood jammed into it to kind of make it, but then you have to know code to get in the main door. Please make it make sense. Make it make sense. People have lost their minds. And you can't get good food anymore. You can't get decent service. It's like everybody's just forgot. And this is what I said. I don't even know anymore what to think. Are they different people? Sheridan Gay. I love that name. Sheridan, this is so funny. Nicolette Sheridan, my mom used to watch, like, Knots Landing when I was a kid. And I just loved her. I don't know why. I'm a brunette, and I have brown eyes, and I'm a plain Jane. And she was just always so pretty to me. I don't know what it was. I just thought she was one of them women. I was just like, oh, she's beautiful. Why can't I be beautiful like that when I grow up? You know. Anyways, it's a beautiful name. Welcome. So this person goes on to say, and this is the person who's trying to say it's all normal. This is possibly correct. Not sure why people are downvoting you. I'm in the industry. If they're refinancing the mortgage, the bank requires, do you see how many mental gymnastics this person has went through to push away the main concern and the main issue, which is people coming into your homes unannounced sometimes to intimidate you, basically, to make you feel some type of way. This is like when I said I knew I was being watched and monitored with little things like I got an email about an eggplant, never talked about eggplant in my life, never ate it, and that night the pseudo spouse brings home an eggplant. I'm not stupid. Don't gaslight me. You're monitoring me. I'm not dumb. But they, no, plausible deniability, oh no. They don't admit to anything ever. But that same group, this, and again, I'm going to say it. People are going to leave, but I'm going to say it. This satanic mental status where everything is flipped upside down and inverted. They want everybody to take responsibility, because here's the main deal. Why? You hide behind Christ. You hide. Take responsibility for the things you've done, which, again, you've never talked to a real follower if you don't understand that taking responsibility is a big part of the beginning of the walk. Anyways, they want you to take responsibility, but they never do. And I don't know, it's like everybody's using the same brain, or, you know, I would say chips in the brain, but it's almost like everybody that voted for that man talks like him, thinks like him, does like him. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're in a union, they're going to be gone. These people hate unions. They're anti-union. You either already have people who've infiltrated your union, or they're going to just shut it down. Watch. I'm not kidding. That's my next quote-unquote prediction. They're going to shut down all the unions. They don't like them. Again, they want us to take responsibility. And again, I'm not right, left. I'm not anti other religions. I think people should have the freedom to worship, unless you're doing harm. If you're ending other beings, that's not a religion. Like, you're just having an excuse to be a sadist, and you're hiding and saying it's a religion to hurt other beings. Like, that's, and we have a lot of sadists in America. Like, I hate to break it to people, but this is a serial killer culture. Go read the comments and true crime chats if you don't believe me. I dip my toes into these other paradigms, so I'm aware of what's going on. I do not ever want to be caught off guard again like I was in 2018. So this person replies, they might not give notice of refinancing, but most apartment dwelling people know that the landlord is required by law to notify at least 24 hours in advance of any inspection or any time they're planning to enter. Yes, because you might not be there, and technically, unless it's an emergency, they're not supposed to enter if you're not there. It's still your home. They might own the land or the dwelling place, which you're going to hate me again, but nobody can own land. Nobody. There's enough here for everybody that every person could get an acre and still be far enough from the other person not to want to interfere with their lives. But again, they want you to think everything is scarce and that the creator maker, wouldn't possibly have planned in advance for the population. It's just ridiculous. So this one says, here's a link to the state law covering the landlord or agents entering a space rented to a tenant. Under state law, Ohio Revised Code 5321.04, for a landlord or the authorized agents, the landlord must give the tenant reasonable advance, 24 hours, enter only during reasonable times, meaning not while you're asleep, not in the wee hours of the morning, not in the wee hours of the night, and not make repeated entry or demands for entry that is harassing. Okay, so now these persons These people go on. And again, we're talking about what's going on the streets, what happened in Minneapolis. The main post, when they get rid of it, or they don't, sometimes they just don't approve it, like this one, people can still chatter, and it's important you know what your neighbors and friends and loved ones are saying. So now they keep going on and on about the law. Now this person goes, and this has 291 upvotes. Man, cops have been wanting to violate your Fourth Amendment rights so badly, they are helping ICE do it so they can avoid the repercussions. Yeah, because you see, they're telling you their opponents aren't being jailed. But if we can believe any of the mainstream media news, their opponents are being jailed. This is just like this is like France all over again, and the Bastille. It's the same thing. Only they say they want the elites gone, the people in control gone, so they get rid of those people, but they replace them with a new generation of the same entitled people who are 100 times worse. And I hate to say that, but that's the truth. This person says, funny enough, most of the cops I know are super mad at ICE, so here's a little balance. We get to hear the other side. There's a reason search warrants are judicial, and there's a reason things are so procedural. ICE is breaking the system in ways that destroy what little trust the police had left with the public, and completely disregarding the centuries of case law that have dictated how police are supposed to do their jobs. Imagine if you were a classically trained Michelin chef, and suddenly there's an Indian street food vendor in your restaurant violating every food safety law known to man, as well as some of the almighties. That being said, and that's a nice analogy. In any other industry, this wouldn't be acceptable. That being said, I don't have a whole lot of respect for any departments that are helping ICE beyond any MOU obligations, especially under the guise of, quote, checks for possible medical emergencies, end quote. That is an outright lie, and you're not cruising around with an ambulance on scene. You're not even trying to be coy about it. That's disrespectful to the community that you're serving. Amen. I agree with that part. That comment has 126 upvotes. This guy says, Donald did pardon 1,500 folks who beat police officers with American flags. That got 94 upvotes. This one says, the only ones that aren't now ICE agents are the ones back in prison. I would almost agree with that. They're indoctrinating everybody. If you don't assimilate, like a robot, if you don't assimilate to their propaganda, their program, it's their way or the highway, man. And tell me, even if, like, any of the mainstream media news can be believed, if they are, like, deporting people, and again, I don't have a head for politics or war. I'm not built that way, so I try to converse with other people. I don't understand. Wait, where was it? Hold on. I lost my place. Oh, I don't understand why, like, that one thing nobody's calling them out on. They're allegedly deporting people to countries that they're not even from. Like, does that make sense? Countries they've never been to. So now they're going to be somebody else's problem? Because if you can't speak the language, like, you really can't get a job. You can't be a productive member of society. Right away, you're in need. You need somebody to do everything for you because you can't communicate. So how is that okay? No matter what side you're on, if that's true, how is that okay with everybody? And there's a lot of comments, too, that say, I voted for this, like they're happy. And again, you have to understand there's a lot of bots and a lot of propaganda. Probably 80% of the people you see online or you encounter are bots or paid military people. All the YouTubers who tell you, hey, I'm ex-military, you should be suspicious of. And I'm sorry to say that, but this is the deal. This is where we're at. I don't trust them. They're too much trying to influence public opinion. The big ones I'm talking, like the really big. This person said it would be nice if these cops would speak out because where most of us stand, all we see are the cops allowing peaceful protesters to be thrown to the ground, car windows being broken, tear gas, and a woman ended. Now, here's my thing with that as well. How much of it is choreographed? Because we know these people do this. We know that the name of the game is fear, scare tactics, fear mongering to get you to assimilate without even knowing it, right? To modify your behavior. I mean, just think about it. Right now, they're modifying millions of people's behavior by pumping up this storm. They've got to push for the economy. Everybody's prepping because of the war and the storm. And now because everybody's buying, there will be more demand. Do you see how it works? How many prepper channels say that the government doesn't want you to be self-sustainable? They don't want you to be a prepper. Yet their channels are the biggest ones around. Why do you think that is? You have to think about these things, guys. When these things don't line up, when they're not in alignment, the things coming out of people's mouths with the actions that you're seeing, there's something wrong there. It's not congruent, right? Okay, so this says, I don't trust, and the end of that comment says, I don't trust anyone in a uniform anymore. Me either. Military S, Fox TVs 24/7. This person said, Cleveland PD did it. I don't anticipate any individual standing up because they'll just get illegally beaten and arrested by the feds like everyone else. Again, is that more propaganda to keep people in? I wouldn't recommend getting involved in any of these protests myself because, like I said, a lot of them are already choreographed. Some of the people are radicalized and they want this. They like have that bloodlust in them. They want to be... They want to wear the boots, if you know what I mean, right? They want to be the shaved head guys. Supplemented or paid by different governments. Right. And I would go so far as to say the people under the masks are either... They're hiding their identity, but it's also communistic. It's also anti-God. It's also anti-good common sense because you need to be able to breathe. But the final thing I would say is it could hide your ethnicity. And the way some of them are, I'm telling you, it's cartel. Like they've allowed the cartel to have certain leeway. Why the cartel? I don't know. They must own some land. And we know that there's a lot of growing happening in the forests and the parks in America. Different channels are paid by different entities. Right, absolutely, I would agree too. Okay, so let's continue with this a little bit so we don't get too far. How far are we? A half hour, that's not bad. It says, I don't know, man, comparing skilled professionals like a trained Michelin chef to mere cops who are selected specifically because they're not too smart is pretty insulting. Also, case law has made it clear multiple times that cops have no duty to protect people, so they take advantage of the fact as much as possible. If cops are mad at ICE, it's probably because 1, they feel like ICE is ruining a good thing, and 2, they voted for this and feel like they shouldn't suffer any repercussions since they're on the same team. I would agree with that. I would go so far as to say certain people seek out to be cops and are hired in because they are sadists, because they have that personality. Again, do you know how many serial killers America has made? And they're trying to make more right now. They're trying to activate certain people, and I know this because I was abused in a very similar fashion, and I see in my computer, like I see the persuasion trying to happen, the manipulation trying to happen. Trying to bait people into reacting so that they have a reason then to get even more aggressive, I guess. So we go on to say, and this is where we get into the surveillance bit too. This person says, down a bit, says, be aware too. And again, I'm doing this to warn people. This isn't just to run my mouth or hear myself talk. There's a lot here. This person says, be aware too if you have a Ring doorbell. Flock Safety, AI surveillance cameras are partnered together. ICE has used Flock for locating and tracking people, so I wouldn't be surprised if Ring cameras can be used too. People are getting these compilations and they are monetizing them, and I'm telling you right now, they're getting them illegally. There's no way that these channels are contacting all these people for consent, and there's no way that all those people have published them, because some of them are embarrassing, some of them are revealing, some of them just, the camera's in a weird place and you're like, why is that there? This is them revealing to us that we are all under surveillance, we are all being monitored, and now you can see the devices. But again, back in the 1960s, President Nixon and I talked about this in another video. There was this thing, and you can't find it. You have to dig for it. There was this act, this thing that they enacted. It was like the Technologically Fair Act or something very strange like that. They basically, what they did was they gave away appliances and technological appliances of that era, like refrigerators, stoves, washers, dryers, because they said that people in lower poverty areas deserve, like they wanted to make things more equal to people. When have you known the government to ever give you anything or make life easier? Because they had monitoring systems in them way back then. That's what Watergate was. It wasn't to reveal that it was just happening in the White House. Whatever happens to the president then, spiritually speaking, anyone that votes for that person, they're on board with whatever they do for that next term or however long they're in office. That is like amplified this. That's the only thing I can come up with to explain all this stuff, okay? Or everybody's possessed. Or we got androids out there that are pretending to be people. Because I've dealt with people, I'm not kidding you, in the last 5 years who don't know how to handle food but work with food. Who don't know how to prepare food but say they eat it and it's their favorite. But they don't go about it. They look at it like it's new. Like, I'm not kidding. Everyday regular stuff. Hygiene. Like, I can't get into specifics, right? But things are bad. And God is showing me this through different people. And again, if you can read between the lines in certain situations and scenarios, you know. So not sorry. Oh, I didn't see any of that. I'm sorry. Okay, so this one says, I've suspected this for a long time, and I wish I could comment, and I wasn't banned from this group. But because it's Ohio, I'm telling you, that's why I'm mad. This person says, I've suspected this for a long time with Ring and not limited to ICE. I have no true verification, just experiences with various communities on Ring and how they network. That's true. And again, I told you, there are, and we've went to a couple of them here when we did research with me videos. There are websites you can go to for each device. Like I have a camcorder sitting over there, and it will tell you if the camera is allowed to be utilized when you're not using it, and you have to opt out, right? It's like one of those things, you're opted in just because you buy it, and they don't tell you about it. If you don't read it in the fine print, you don't know. And most people throw that crap away, like, honestly, and they know that, but they have to tell you and inform you, and so legally they can say, oh, we told them. It's right there in the fine print, way down at the bottom, sideways down. And you know, you see it in the hieroglyphics there that nobody can read. This person says, Ring is real buddy with law enforcement. They used to be able to get it without even a warrant, but it was being discussed to give users more control. I don't know where we're at now. It's been a long time since I heard anything. This person replies to that and says, supposedly they made linking your cameras to law enforcement fully opt-in now. You must sign up on their community app to let law enforcement access your cameras by a simple request instead of mandating a warrant. But do you trust Amazon to tell the truth about that? Nope, not at all. This person, the rat-a-tat, so they're probably kind of in the club and no. This person says, I don't trust anything anymore, really. Government, corporations, they're all horrible. I can't believe so many people in charge got together and decided us poors needed treated like cattle. How do the worst of the worst keep rising to those positions? Is the system really this broken? And the person answers that by saying yes. This person says, any confirmation that other doorbell camera companies are partnered as well? I'd like to replace my Ring cameras, but only with a company that's not going to end up the same. This one says there are probably others cooperating. For people with at least a little bit of tech know-how. Okay, so they go on to discuss better companies. This person says, I'm in Toledo. We formed watch groups some time ago to look out for ICE. They've started entering reports of ICE spottings. Nothing confirmed yet, but I'm sure they are here because there are a lot of sightings reports. I'm hoping they have a harder time here than other cities. At least half of the people living here hate Trump and ICE. That's somebody talking from Toledo. I'm going to tell you from experience, most of the people I live around love Trump. Love him. There's FAFO signs everywhere. This person says they're here. My brother-in-law seen a convoy of their Ford Explorers on I-280 last Friday. He said it's weird seeing so many drivers wearing masks. Can't believe we're here, man. Like, this is stuff we learned about in school, about communism, and just, it's just so depressing. And so now they're sharing information, and this is good. This is what people need to do. You need to share information online with people who are in your little area. Type in your city, village, and state, wherever you're at. Type it into Google, and you can post Reddit after it to see some of these groups. You have to understand there's a lot of propaganda, but there's some good information here, some good bits. This person says, I heard the next allowable Constitution violation is home invasion without a warrant. It won't be a select part of the population if that passes. I'm going to tell you something now, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me. But I'm going to tell you again from first-person experience and the people I've talked with on this channel and the original channel since 2017 on YouTube and Reddit. 90% of the people I've talked to online understand that something has happened to the majority of the population mentally. Most, are just confused and don't know how to figure it out. And a lot of people won't discuss it openly because they don't know how to discuss it or who to talk to about it. The next part is that we understand, or we should by now understand, that most things that come down from the top, the information, is either upside down, inverted, inside out, or the exact opposite of the truth. Trump wants this peace thing. Peace, peace, peace. He's not actually creating peace for anyone. Gaza is now going to be redeveloped. Do you see what happened? Do you see what happened? And nobody said anything. They ethnically cleansed a whole group of people in Gaza so they could build more of their crap, more of their infrastructure. And again, they don't care about money so much, but they do care about conquering the land. And to them, to these types of individuals, and again, they're in tribes too, and not all their tribes, not all the 13 bloodlines of Lucifer, allegedly, not all these elitist bloodlines are in agreement. They're in separate factions and they argue with each other too. We should take that to our advantage. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. If you don't understand some of these concepts, read The Art of War, Cao Sun. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of the things that are happening now that are covert, and I'll lose viewers for this again, but it's Christian persecution. You're not going to believe me. And every group, if you type in Christian persecution Reddit, every single group says, why are you complaining? There is no such thing. It does not exist. But if you go and you search like stats or numbers from the last 5 years for church fires in America alone, there was 500 in 2023. And now they're celebrating because that decreased in 2024 to like 415 by like 50. It only decreased because there wasn't as many anymore. This is why I said stats aren't always reliable. You have to use your own common sense and discernment to read between the lines. I know from experience, from talking to people online, women are being persecuted because these individuals hate women. It's part of their religion. Like, I'm not even kidding. They hate organically born natural women. And I hate that it's that way. I don't hate anybody. But it's sad the way they behave because they say they want acceptance and tolerance, but then they bully you online. My life has been effectively ruined because I made a post in Facebook standing up for children. My life has been effectively ruined. And I had no idea that my spouse and son were co-signed on to some of these agendas. None. I was the worker. I was away all the time. I saw my family in the evenings. They were sweet to me, kind and nice. Once I became more useless and I was home all the time. This person says, them telling ICE to bust down doors without judicial warrants is them straight up admitting that they're more than okay and probably even hoping for ICE agents to get ended. They're desperate for some ICE agent ending so they can declare ML, continuity of government. You should know what that means by yesterday's video. And try stopping the midterm elections. I would agree with that. They don't want actual elections. That's the only way Trump will continue and hold another term, is if there aren't any elections held. And everybody's, yay, yay. I feel like we're those people that, like, cheer on our own demise, like Bugs Bunny when he's in the pot and the witch is boiling him up and he's, oh, I love this bath. This is so nice. Like frogs being boiled. You don't even realize it until it's too late. I feel like that is 90% of the American citizenry population right now. But so many of the people that you're seeing here in America are literally bad actors, and they're using that term. I've talked about that ad nauseum too, like bad actors. Understand that Christian persecution is not going to be in the open. You're not going to see people stoned in the streets, but you will see that. And you will see public executions, because I know firsthand that's what they want. They told me this, and I've told you that in my testimony videos. This is what they want, legitimate public executions. But that's going to be the end of the persecution, because they're only going to go out in the open like that when everybody is on board, and they are going to say, we're going after the bad guys. We're going after the child harmers. That's not really who they're going after. They're all still fine. You saw the YouTubers even. Oh, we got copies of the Epstein file. None of that was real. And people don't care. Candace Owens said she's a Freemason. Nobody cares that she's a Mason. And Masons can only be men. So, Candace, what's up with that? What do you got to tell us? Is she one of the ones named in the lawsuit? Because the French lady, whatever, first lady, she did a lawsuit against everybody talking about that. Did Candace get sued? And I'm just asking questions. Look, I lost like 5 people watching. Nobody wants to talk about truth. It's covert Christian persecution, and it's not going to look like it used to. Those will be the end results. That will be the actual end, when they're saying, when people want to see that type of justice publicly, because they are told these are the child harmers. And it's not going to be. It's going to be the Christ followers. However, right now, you have to understand that persecution is not what it used to look like. You persecute a person today in this digital age by not allowing them freedom of movement. You persecute a person by ruining their credit score. You persecute a person by overcharging them. You do it through finances. You do it through their housing situation. You do it through their car. You always do it, though, where nobody can see it and it's plausible deniability. And if it's electronic, even better, because you can say, well, you're just paranoid. You don't know what you're talking about. My dad was a victim of identity theft. These people like to do this to us. They like to give you the big C, too. This is what they do. My family has had troubles because, and I believe it goes way, way back because of who my family name, my dad's name. But regardless, it's not out in the open, and persecution looks a lot different than it used to. You ruin a person digitally. You take away their ability to provide for themselves. You take away their, in their job situation. You take away their ability to communicate with others by blocking out their internet and making it kind of fake and giving them just bots to talk to. You persecute a person by isolating, excluding them. You persecute a person by making food scarce to them. And sometimes they give you what you want because they want you corrupted and in sin. Okay, so this person says they're desperate for ICE agents to be ended so that they can declare ML. And this person replied, I don't doubt that theory at all. It's crazy to me how so many so-called conservatives are going along with this. It makes me embarrassed to be a conservative, even though I'm not MAGA. And a lot of the bootlickers who are going, and again, I'm not saying this, I'm reading. Bootlickers are going along with this are MAGA, but still, when they said they were only going after known child harmers and aggressors, people who take, sex from a woman without asking, murderers, I knew it wouldn't stop there. It would escalate to anyone who isn't white. And that's not true either. At this time, it is the reverse of the way it used to be. White people are the ones being persecuted, but they'll never tell you that. They'll never show it to you. They'll say it's in your imagination. You're imagining this. It's like, again, it goes back to that plausible deniability theory or behavior. And this says, I believe it. They went door to door in Cleveland. I can't believe MAGA thinks this is treading on me. Guess that BS died with hating child harmers. Trump bombs 3 countries in his first year and is threatening more. Every mission costs millions. SS and Medicare aren't far behind. The other, he's robbed to pay for his whims. Patios, Gatsby parties, ballrooms, endless golf. And again, I think all that's lies too. When have you know the White House? Do you know how hard it is? If you live in North Carolina, for example, because my uncle lived there, and I've done a little research. In Charlotte, North Carolina, for example, that city is so old. It holds a part of history. You're not allowed, if you live in one of those buildings, you know, you should be praising God because they're beautiful and expensive. But if you're living in one of their old buildings, one of their old homes, you're not allowed to change anything unless you file a petition with the city and state and the Historical Society and you ask them for permission. And that's just if you're a regular Joe doing this at your home in an old town like Charlotte. Thank you for being here, Sheridan. So if Trump wanted to change the White House, that wasn't up to him. He would have had to have gotten permission from like the Historical Society in Washington, D.C., from the city planners. Like, that's a big deal. That's not what's happening. They're giving us a reason on the outside, right? That's for people driving by who live there who are saying, oh my gosh, what's going on there? So then they put out, well, this is actually what's going. It's all damage control. It's all cover stories at this point. You don't have to believe me. It just takes a little research and a little discernment, reading between the lines to understand what's happening. Now, again, they're going to exacerbate all these situations and make them seem worse because they want to take away our mobility. They don't want us moving around freely for whatever reason. And I think that's because they don't want us having our eyes on what's actually happening in our country. And that's exactly what we should be doing. And again, I don't want to sound preachy, but why does your house payment matter at this time? They're going to take whatever they can, and under certain laws, they're allowed to go to farms. They're allowed to take from your small garden. If somebody in the city has a beef with you and they go into ML, they're allowed to do all kinds of things. We should not be allowing this. This is our land. It's ours. All of ours. Every one of us at this point in time. This shouldn't be happening. Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit of what I said real quick here. This is from Vatican News, and then I'm going to get into the reading part, and I will read for about 30 minutes. And again, I am inside because it's like negatives out there, so I just have the time, and this is stuff I was going to read anyway. So maybe I can get the channel some views, and I only care about that because there's certain information I just care about you guys receiving. This says open doors. Number of Christians persecuted worldwide, and this is just like a week old, rises to 388 million. But mind you, they're not including America. According to America, everything's great. Trump is in charge, and he's for the Christians, right? He said, I love you, Christians. I'm not one, but I am one. Vote. You only have to do it this one last time, and that's it. And still, everybody ignored us. Didn't want to hear what we had to say. And they really wanted me to vote for that man, and I'm not sure why. Because, again, I think they're going to flip everything. They're going to end up, like, taking him as some type of political prisoner because of all these moves he's making. Or he already is a political prisoner, and he's doing what he's told. He's not actually in charge. Please understand that. The president never is. But everyone that's on that side is in agreement with him. And I'm telling you, it has nothing to do with politics. Politics is its own special cultish religion. Please know that. Look at how many elitists are political. It is a part of their religion. The Bible had kings and queens. It never said nothing about voting for your own master. How many times do we have to be freed before we realize we're sovereign? We're sovereign. I understand if you're in a community, get in a community of like-minded people. Don't let it get too big. Maybe have a few elders, 2 men, 2 women, who come into agreement when certain situations need judged or whatever, when that person steals your carrots from your garden. It really doesn't need to be so complicated. The number of Christians exposed to persecution and at risk suffering violence worldwide rose by 8 million people in 1 year. And that is just what is being reported and what is being known as persecution. And most of that stuff falls under these wars that you're seeing. It has nothing to do with America. And like I said, the covert persecution, the monitoring, the targeting, the tracking, the not hiring you, the pushing you out of jobs, pushing you out of apartments, ruining your social credit score or your credit score. That's persecution today, is messing with your job, messing with your finances, messing with your family, messing with your car, messing with your mobility. Okay? It just hasn't gone, it hasn't gone overt yet. It's still covert in America. But if it rose 8 million in 1 year, these are other human beings. And I don't want to hear, well, they shouldn't have done what they did hundreds of years ago. None of us were here to even know if any of that's true, number one. Number two, that wasn't any of us. We weren't here for that. I just think it's ridiculous. And nobody has to agree with me, but that's where I'm at with a lot of it. Okay, now again, this might make some people mad, but this is what we're going to look at next. Hold, please. I'm still dealing with a lot of congestion, a lot of sinus stuff. And I'm out of money. And I'm out of, like, my allergy medicine. I got to get Sammy his license. All that stuff. I used to every now and again post my PayPal link. I don't do that anymore just because people are ignorant. Then I have my spouse and my son and their friends pretending to be trolls, talking about, oh, you're a beggar. When Sammy was the mascot of the channel, we got him together. But there's not, people don't stick around channels like that anymore. It's nice to have the same people come and visit and feel like you're friends. And I think we should be connecting more. We can't trust the mainstream media. We already know this. We need to go to each other for local news. And we need to start meeting in person again and gathering. Because that's what they don't want. And in this day and age, we should be doing what our controllers, manipulators, we should be doing what they don't want us to do. Okay, so we're going to continue this creation story because I do believe there's something to learn here. But it has some big names that I'm not familiar with. I never read, like, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And some of this, as I read the table of contents to you, it is pieces of scrolls and whatnot from different places. What we're looking at right now is called the Bronze Book. And we are in the Book of Creation in the Bronze Book. And right now, we are at chapter 5 in the beginning. And again, I'm not telling you it's truth to believe, accept, or receive it. But in this part, it gets into there being 2 sets of humanoids. And how one has certain attributes and the other one has other attributes. Some of it should sound very familiar to you. And this is why I'm doing this. If so many creation stories have things in common, then perhaps we're all telling the same story in our own different languages, through our own different cultural eyes and experiences. We have more in common than we have different, but we have the same darkness as an enemy. And I think that we should be together in that way, Okay, so enough jabbing. I will read for about a half hour. Chapter 5 in the beginning. Now the children of God were molded by the hand of God, which is called Awen, and it manifested according to their desires. Hand of God, but again it says there, just like Genesis. For all things which have life are molded by Awen. The fox, shivering in the cold lands, longs for warmth, and so its cubs have warmer coats. The owl, clumsy in the dark, longs to see its prey more clearly, and in generations of longing, the desire is granted. Ah Wen makes everything what it is, for all things change under its law. Men, too, are molded by their desires, but unlike the beasts and birds, their yearnings are circumscribed by the laws of fate and destiny and the law of sowing and reaping. We know that to be true. These, the desires modified by the laws, are called inid vadu. Okay, that's the word. Unlike the beasts and birds, this in man is something relating to him rather than to his offspring, though they are not untouched by it. Destiny may be likened to a man who must travel to a distant city, whether or not he wishes to make the journey, the destination being his destiny. He may choose whether to go by way of river or by way of plain, whether across mountains or through forests, on foot or horseback, slow or fast, and whatever befalls because of this decision is fate. If a tree falls on him because he chose the forest path, it was fated, for luck is an element of fate. Destiny leaves no choice. Fate gives limited choice, which may be good or bad, but it cannot be averted. What is fated must be, for at no point can there be any turning back. That's an interesting way to look at destiny and fate. And again, I'm not telling you to accept or receive all of this, but let's see what we can learn from this and see how much it has in common with some of the other books, ancient texts that we read on the channel. The circumstances, enid vadu, of the traveler conform to the law of sowing and reaping. He may travel in comfort or pain, happily or sorrowfully, with strength or weakness, heavily burdened or lightly burdened, well prepared or ill prepared. When the destination is set according to the degrees of a former life, then the circumstances of the journey should conform with the desire. I think in short that is saying, you must be in alignment. And we've talked about that before, about our thoughts, our words, and our deeds all being in agreement, or else you're out of balance yourself. When the destination is set, okay, there we go. For what use is desiring a great destination when the law of sowing and reaping decrees that an intolerable burden must be carried on the way? Far better to have lesser aspirations. The decrees of fate are many. The decrees of destiny are few. When the earth was young and the race of man still as children, there were fertile green pastures in the lands where all is now sand and barren wasteland. In the midst of it was a garden land which lay against the edge of the earth, eastward and towards the sun rising. Sounds like they're describing Eden as well. Let's see if they are. And out of it flowed the river of Tardana, which watered the plain. That sounds similar to Eden. It allegedly has 4 rivers coming out of it. From the mountain on the other side ran the river Cal, which watered the plain through the land of Chaldan. The river Nara flowed westward and then turned back to flow around the garden land. So it acts as a barrier around. That's interesting. It almost looks like Atlantis a little bit. And that is how Eden is also described in the book of Adam and Eve. It was a fertile place, for out of the ground grew every kind of tree that was good for food, and every tree that was pleasant to the sight. Every herb that could be eaten and every herb that flowered was there. The tree of life, which was called glacier, having leaves of gold and copper, was within the sacred enclosure. There was a show like that in the 80s when we were kids, a kid's show, and they made dolls too. I remember because I had the VCR and the doll, or the VHS and the doll. When I remember what they're called, I'll make a comment. There too was the great tree of wisdom, bearing the fruits of knowledge, granting the choice and ability to know the true from the false. It is the same tree which can be read as men read a book. There also was the tree of trespass, beneath which grew the lotus of rapture. Interesting. And in the center was the place of power where God made his presence known. Interesting. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I know it's not biblical, but again, we can learn from other books too. It doesn't mean, we're not still who we are. And if reading a book influences you that bad that it modifies your behavior and your whole belief system, it better be a darn good book full of all truth, or, you got to examine yourself, and I would go with the latter. Time passed, and the children of God were grown and strong and upright under the tempering hammer of God, and earth, the anvil of God, became more kindly. All was pleasant and food plentiful. But life palls in such places, for it is against the nature of man to flourish in these circumstances. This gets interesting. Earth is not for pleasurable dallying. It is a place of teaching, trial, and testing. Most people don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. Man does not flourish when he can lay around and dwell in pleasure all day. Like, what do I mean by this? Okay. What do I want to do all day? If I could do whatever I wanted to do, what would I do? It would be like one of the old tea commercials where you're running off the dock and you jump in the water and there's a tire swing. Or in Eden, and like my hand in the water as I'm laying there watching the sun and the clouds go by. That's all well and good after you've been tested. If we were to live like that every day and we never had any struggle or friction, we wouldn't be refined. Our character would not blossom, right? Our person, our free will wouldn't be free because we're making no choices. We're not struggling. We're not making decisions. I hope that makes sense. You have to struggle while you're here, at least a bit. The children of God were not yet the heirs of God, nor inheritors of, little g, Godhood. But there was one among them who had almost completed the pilgrimage of Enid Vedu. He had unraveled the tangled skeins of fate, and which is interesting because we just read in the book of the Holy 12 yesterday, which we're going back to after this, tomorrow or another video, about how it's our job, right? It's God's job. He will conceal a thing from us until we're ready. And we're not really ready until we know to seek it and go out and see if it's true or if it's there. It's our job to unravel the mysteries of God, and this is saying the same thing. This person, whoever it was, had unraveled the tangled skins of fate and traversed the tumultuous seas of life to the many ports of destiny. And having paid the debts of sowing and reaping, was one triumphant over Enid Vedu. He was Fanvar, son of Oma and Atem. He was wise and knew all things. He beheld mysteries and the secret things hidden from the eyes of other men. He saw sunrise and the sun setting in their splendor, but longed for things not realizable in the place where he lived. So because he walked with God, he was called out from his kind and brought to Meruah, the garden place. He came to it across the mountains and wastelands, arriving after many days' journeying. Weary and close to death because of the privations he suffered, he could just reach the refreshing waters from which he drank deeply, and filled with exhaustion, he slept. In his sleep he dreamed, and this was the manner of his dreaming. Check this out. I don't know if this is him, like this is the quote-unquote the equivalent of Eve, or if this is the Holy Spirit, but let's check it out. He saw before him a being of indescribable glory and majesty, because in the Bible, glory means God's Holy Spirit. I am the God above all, even above the God of your people. I am that which fulfills the aspirations of men. I am that in which they are fulfilled. You, having traversed all the circles of Enid Vedu and established your worthiness, are now made my governor on earth. And you shall rule all things here, guiding them in my ways, leading them ever upwards into glory. This will be your labor, and behold, Here's your reward. Okay, it might be the Adam, the equivalent, the archetype, equivalent of the archetype of Adam. A cloud mist seemed to gather, and now this is his reward for struggling and being tested and passing his test. You know, and this is interesting too, because we don't hear Adam struggle much. We hear him name the animals. We hear, you know, he's in awe of the place, which is cool. But he doesn't have any struggle until Eve comes along. So I understand how men can perceive certain things the way that they do. But we have to understand it was his job to care for the animals. It was his job to care for the land. When Adam went into error, everything went into error. When Eve went into error, her spouse went into error. So do you see how it's we are in a way each responsible for each other in that way and how we influence each other. Not that we're not responsible for our choices, we are. But so is the person who's trying to manipulate us. They are as well. And there will be justice for that. All these people here now, all these individuals, because I don't know that they're human, they're breaking a lot of natural laws, going against people's sovereignty and free will. Okay, so this is his reward. A cloud mist seemed to gather about the glorious being, enfolding him, so he was no longer visible. Then the mist gradually cleared, and the man saw another form emerging. It was that of a woman, but one such as Fanvar had never seen before, beautiful beyond his conception of beauty, with such perfection of form and grace that he was dumbfounded. Yet the vision was not substantial. She was a wraith, an ethereal being. So she is the concept of her is there, the essence of her is there, but there's either a veil in between them, or she is not quite done yet, right? She's not quite done being created yet. So let's see what happens. The man awoke. Now that's in a dream. God gave him his reward, and the woman was his reward. So here we go. The man awoke and sought food from the fruits about him, and having refreshed himself, he wandered about the garden. Wherever he went, he saw the wraith. And that's a good word, because she's like ghostish, kind of. But was unafraid because she smiled encouragingly, bringing comfort to his heart. Comforter is also used in relation to the Holy Spirit in the Bible. He built himself a shelter, and he grew strong again, but always wherever he went, the wraith was not far distant. So remember, this is after his testing, his trial, whatever God had put him through. We're not privy to that yet. We don't know exactly what that is. Right now, the creation story is what's important. One day near the edge of the garden, he fell asleep in the heat of the day, and awoke to find himself surrounded by the sons of Bothus, capitals. Not true men, but yoslings. I don't know what that means. Kinsfolk to the beasts of the forest. That makes me think of like those paganish, half man, half horse, minotaurs and things of that nature. Interesting. Before they could take his strength and wisdom, apparently they want to fight, basically. Before they could take his strength and wisdom, it's funny how they always approach. Isn't it funny how a lot of things that happen to human beings, like in sleep, we're very vulnerable. Please be careful with your current sleeping arrangements. And I've preached to that for years too. Because again, not everybody is what you think they are, and there's bad things going on against people's will. Okay, so he awoke to find himself surrounded by these not true men. They're kinsfolk. They're related to the beasts of the forest. So before they could take his strength and wisdom, he loosed himself among them, slaying some in his rage, and might, before the rest, ran away. When it was done, he sat himself down beneath a great tree, for he was wounded, and blood gushed out from his side, and gathered thickly beside him. He became faint, falling into a deep sleep, and while he slept, a wondrous thing happened. The wraith came and lay beside him. This is so cool, the way they work this into the story. The wraith came and lay beside him, taking blood from his wound upon herself, so it congealed about her. Thus the spirit being became clothed with flesh, born of congealing blood, and being sundered from his side, she arose, a mortal woman. I think that's a fascinating creation story. Again, I just really enjoy creation stories. I think there's always something to learn from people with different perspectives than ours. I don't think you have to come to blows because you disagree with somebody about religion or politics. To me, that's just ludicrous and it's very barbaric. But again, understand, it says right here too, and I always say that, there's a verse that says, wolves in sheep's clothing. A sheep's clothing. Understand that our clothing in the very beginning, we're light beings, right? Our clothing is our flesh and blood. The things that are here right now, even the Hopi prophecies speak to this as well. So I don't want to get too far out there, but not everyone is a human being. Not everyone is of mankind. And, you can't get that through a lot of people's head. It's just true. And I would even go as far as to say some of the people who are dead set against it are against it because they're gaslighters, because they know that there are other beings here. But it's their job to convince us otherwise. Okay. In his heart, Fanvar was not at rest because of her likeness, but she was gentle, ministering to him with solicitude, and, being skillful in the ways of healing, she made him whole. Therefore, when he had grown strong again, he made her Queen of the Greenland, and she was so called even by our fathers, who named her Gula. But Fanvar called her Arua, meaning helpmate. In our tongue, she is called the Lady of Lanavid. Now, we did the intro to this book 2 videos ago, so if you want to hear what's going on, go back to that and continue. Now God enlightened Fanvar concerning the woman, saying, this woman was drawn from her compatible abode in a realm of beauty through the yearning aspirations of men. Her coming accomplishes something which would otherwise have taken countless generations, for earth is more fitting for men to learn manly things than for women to learn womanly ones. This woman is not as other women, being in no way like yourself. Every hair of her head is unlike that of a man. Every drop of blood and every particle of flesh is that of a woman, and quite unlike that of a man. Her thoughts and desires are different. She is neither coarse nor uncouth. See, God is a father, and now he's trying to teach his firstborn son how this potential mate should be treated, right? So he's saying, she's not coarse, so you shouldn't be coarse around her. And she's not uncouth, so you shouldn't teach her to be. Being altogether of another, more refined realm. So let me get this straight. She came from the mist just because she was drawn there by the Adam archetype. She walked from an entire another realm, another universe maybe. Almost like the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's saying here in this story that women are from a different place than men. But that we were drawn here by the man. Okay, so continuing. Her thoughts and desires are different. She's neither coarse nor uncouth, being altogether of another, more refined realm. Her daughters will walk proudly, endowed with every womanly perfection and grace. Delicacy, modesty, and charm will be the lovely jewels enhancing their womanliness. Henceforth, man will be truly man, and woman will be truly woman, men being girded with manliness, and women clothed with womanliness. Yet they shall walk together hand in hand towards the ascending glory before them, each the helpmate and inspiration of the other. So Fanvar and Arua lived in contentment amid bounty and fruitfulness, with freedom from affliction and sickness. They delighted in each other, and because of their differences, were drawn together. Arua brought but one thing with her when she crossed the misty frontier, the treasure of Lanavid, the jewel contained in the moon chalice, the stone of inspiration fashioned by the desires of men. Now we're getting to alchemy here a little bit. Never owned by any but the daughters of Arua. This, the Lengil, Arua gave to Fanvar as her dowry, and her pledge of purity and exclusiveness. She followed the ways of the cradle land, not the ways of earth. So she's following the ways of where she is from. not necessarily the ways of earth, because we just heard that the earth is more coarse. It is made for men to conquer and learn. It's not as gentle or as kind to women. And this is saying she is following the ways of where she is from, and with her she brought this treasure. It's a stone of inspiration, and it wasn't made by hands. It was fashioned by the desires of men. Within the garden land was the sacred enclosure. So this is like a dome around the tree of life, okay? So I just want to make sure, or maybe a fence, a really high lattice. We don't know exactly, right? But there's something that has it in the middle, but separate, in the midst of the garden, but separated, okay? I hope that makes sense. Within the garden land was the sacred enclosure, the domain of Fanvar and Arua, forbidden to those of the children of God who had now come to this place. It contained the chalice of fulfillment, meaning that's the cup you drink from, granting any who drank from it the realization of all things to which they aspired. None might drink from this save Fanvar and Arua. So they're the only two that are allowed to drink from the chalice of fulfillment, from this cup. Also, there was the cauldron of immortality, containing an essence distilled from the fruits growing in the garden, and this guarded against mortal ills. Now, this is where you get into there being two different people, because they end up helping this other group that's not quite like them, but they help them because they need help. Hold, please. Arua brought forth a son by Fanvar, and he was called, Rautuki, and a daughter who was called Armina. Each knew the mysteries of magic and the ways of the stars. In the fullness of time, Rautoki married among the daughters of the sons of God, and had two sons, Enanari and Nenduka. It was Enanari who first taught the weaving of cloth from plants. Oh, that's cool. So like cotton and hemp, they're using to make their clothes, and she's teaching them. And Nenduka was a mighty hunter. Armina also married among the sons of God and brought forth a son who was called Belenki, and daughters called Enanua and Mameda. Hold, please. It also makes it sound like in some of this, like the men are like the fallen angel ones, the sons of God, because they keep acting like it's two separate groups of people. But again, according to this, women are different. We are from a whole different realm, which I've often wondered that, just because we seem to be so different. And I seem to be like straight up allergic to the earth, although I love it and I love the animals. I'd much rather kind of be like a pagan, running around in the forest all the time and just planting things and growing things and living free of all this news media crap over your head all the time. Anyways, moving on. And by that I meant how they live, not like actually being a pagan. So now we're learning that there's a cauldron of immortality, and in it has this essence, a drink, that are from the fruits that grow in the garden. And this can help you to keep from getting sick. Okay, so we get into the names there a little bit, and then she's teaching them how to weave. Armina also married among the sons of God and brought forth a son who was called Belenki, and daughters called Anunoa and Mameda. Anunoa knew the making of pots and things of clay, and Mameda the taming of beasts and birds. Nenduka had two sons, Namtara and Canaan. Namtara had two sons also, Nenduka and Dadam, before dying in the fullness of manhood. Belenki married Endiva and had a son called Enki-Dua. So is this the story of Enki and Enlil? I don't know. Let's find out. Because again, this book is a compilation of several different sources. That's what we read in the intro. Okay, so Belenki, Enki. Yeah, Belenki. Belenki married Endiva and having had a son called it Enki-Dua. Interesting. And a daughter called Estartha, meaning maid of the morning. That's a pretty name. And she became a great teacher among the children of God. This was Astartha, who became the first moon maiden, being later called the Lady of the Morning Star. Enkidu had a daughter, and her name was Mava. Now, I don't know enough about the Enki Enlil story to know if that's what we're getting into here. I don't know if the names are similar. Again, these are from bronze plates allegedly kept in Britain that have a couple of different sources, one of them being Egypt. Outside the sacred enclosure, so this is known as Gisar, but forming a gateway into it, was a circular structure of stones called Gilgal, and within this was a shrine wherein was kept a sacred vessel called Gwenduva. Okay, so outside of the sacred enclosure, which is where the Tree of Life is kept, the sacred enclosure itself is called Gisar. It forms a gateway into it. Oh, forming a gateway into this enclosure is a circular structure of stones called Gilgal, and within this was a shrine where was kept a sacred vessel. This was like a goblet and was made of rainbow-hued crystal set in gold with pearls. Above the cup appeared a shimmering moon-colored mist like a thin, cold flame. At certain times, when the heavens were in proper position, the Gwenduva was filled with moon dew. I see what they're doing. And it's called moon water or ormus. I've talked at length about ormus and how it's white gold and how I believe the ancients consumed this. I have tried different brands of ormus myself, and I don't. If you can't experiment on your own body, then there's something wrong. And again, I've not done anything to change, nothing crazy, but this is something that I have tried to get my own health and gear. I've tried more holistic routes, and whenever you go holistic routes, you also get targeted for that. And if you don't believe me, look into all the people who were ended, who had their own holistic practices from about 2008. It's still happening, but it got really big probably around 2012, 2014, when it started being talked about in the media. They don't want us healthy and taking care of ourselves and understanding. I mean, I can't believe I worked with a young man who, I said, man, I'm sick of the system. I kind of don't want to deal with money anymore at all. And that's when they really started, coming after me to, fire me. But one of the young men I work with, the one that I saw the thing on his neck, too, so I know they've messed with him, he said, how are you going to live? And I said, what do you mean, young man? He said, well, how would you eat? What would you... I said, there's trees and plants where food is grown. And he always was saying how his family was into God and Old Testament God. And because they were, they slaughter animals and stuff. And I said, but he had a farm. And I said, how do you not know this? I said, you have a farm for a living. Your parents didn't raise you to understand that there's food everywhere. You don't go to the grocery store and it just happens to be there. I said, I would be fine. I said, I know how to fish. I said, and I know how to set up a tent and make a fire. I said, and most importantly, I know where to grow some plants and stuff. And again, this is why they don't want us. This is why a lot of the plants in America are males, because the females help you to reproduce and they produce fruit. They don't want us feeding ourselves in that way. Okay? But they also don't want us starving, because if you fast, like some of us who have fast and do fast, you begin to see with spiritual eyes and you begin to understand that there are people here that aren't quite like some of us. Okay, so they get into that in this story. Let me continue. So there's a drink, which I believe is called moon water, and during certain times of the year, this goblet fills with this moon water. And it says it makes a pale honey-colored liquid, and this people drank from that goblet. The children of God who married and this, that, and the other. Because we're going to get into another tribe in a minute. However, there were different proportions in the vessel for those of the blood of Fanvar and Arua, and those who were the children of God, but not of their blood. It was the potion from the Gwenduva, which kept sickness and dis-ease away from those who drank it. And here we get into like a little bit of jealousy. I think they steal that. Datum, the first father, married Letha, and they had a son called Herthu. Datum then married Mava, who had a daughter, not by him, and this was Guinevere, the cuckoo child, fathered by Abramelned of Gwarthon, son of Namtenegal. Okay, I'm wondering if this is Celtic. Because, like, Guinevere, like, a lot of this is spelled. And people's, what do they say here? It's the Celts, whatever. America says it's wrong. It's supposed to be pronounced the other way. But I'm wondering if that's where some of this is from. Because if they're bronze plates and Britain has them, or found them. Huh. Interesting. Let's continue and see what goes on. Oh, that's weird. Datum then married Mava, who had a daughter, but not by him. Lovely. Fathered by Abramelned of Gwarthon, son of Namtenegal, whom we call Lewid, the Dark Father. Ay, it's a lovely name. About the land of the children of God was the wasteland where Yoslings, those are the different people, remember from a couple pages ago, that tried to like be aggressive with him or surprise him or catch him off guard while he was sleeping. So, about the land of the children of God, around it, was the wasteland, where the Yoslings, called the children of Zumat, which means they who inherit death, dwelt. Now let's hold there. I want you to understand what's happening here. This other group of people, the Yoslings, they die. They go through death. They experience decay and entropy, right? The people that we were just talking about for the whole rest of the story, most of the story, those people, the children of God, do not die. I know I lose viewers when I talk about this, and I know they shut me down when I talk about this, but death is an illusion. The devil is a liar. Everything he says is a deception. He can't actually give people anything, okay? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the, what? Shadow of death. It is an illusion. Death is like the curtain. And the illusionist, the magician, is Satan, Lucifer, okay? I hope that's a decent analogy. Moving on. So, Yoslings can die. They can experience death. The children of God, they don't die. So, here's where we get into some jealousy, because the Yoslings, they want that cup, right? They want to drink from it, inherit immortality. Amongst these, Namtenegal, the wily hunter, was the most wise and cunning. He alone was unafraid of the children of God, and he alone dared to enter their garden land. In the days when Esthara was teaching, Namtenegal often came to hear her words, and the children of God were not displeased, for teaching the wild men about them was a duty with which they had been charged. Let's hold there. So Estartha, she's a teacher, and she teaches the young ones of the children of God. Namtenegal, the one who was brave enough to walk into the midst of the children of God, he came to listen to her teach, right? And the children of God who were there learning, they weren't angry about this because it's their job. They were charged with teaching what? The wild men, which I find funny because in the YouTube documentaries, the old stories from the 1800s and the 100s, the wild men, they were Bigfoot. They were Sasquatchians. Is it related? Interesting. Namtenegal therefore participated in their rites, but he could not partake of the elixir from the elixir from Gwenduva, because this was forbidden. So the Yoslings, the different ones, the ones who die, they're not allowed to drink from this cup. Okay? While it gave health and strength to the children of God, safeguarding them from sickness of the Yoslings, If given to others, it causes a wasting away. What is a wasting away? That's like the big C. And you should know what I'm talking about. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. My disclaimers are in the description. But the great wasting away is the same thing that happens to a person when they get the big C, for real. It was also so it's forbidden. These yoslings who experience death, they're not allowed to drink from the children of God's elixir that keeps sickness away from them. But the yoslings want it. They die. They get sick. They want to drink that too, but it's not for them. This is where we have to understand, especially alleged Christ followers, like mainstream churchy people, and for Americans and for women and for children and adults. Not everything is for you. Not everything is for me. Not everything is for us as human beings to partake of, to participate in. It's not all for us. These politic games they play, this entertainment they give us, the circus, bread and circus, we shouldn't even be watching. That's all for them. This is their reward. They're getting it, right? Okay. So they don't experience death, right? So now the wily one, he learned much from Astartha, the one wild thing that has the guts to go amidst the children of God. He learned a lot listening to her teach, and in the fullness of time brought his own son to her, and he became as her son, living in her house and forsaking the ways of his people. So he learned so much from her that he wanted his son to have better, so he brought his son to her. And she didn't turn him away because, again, much like Adam and Eve were given charge to have dominion over the earth and the animals, the children of God in this story are given charge over these yoslings who are different than them, who experience death, who don't seem to be as wise as them. So they're given the job to teach them, and they are obeying, right? Because it's what they're made for. They're made to do these things. Most of us don't realize we will find our true contentment and joy and happiness in this life too, when we do what we're created to do. When we try to go against our own nature is when we are the most out of alignment, out of whack, imbalanced, and unhappy, diseased, ill at ease, anxiety-ridden, all those things. So he brought his son to her, and she kept him there. And she, let's see. While it gave health and strength to the children of God, the children of the yoslings weren't allowed to have it. Okay, it was also altogether forbidden for any of the children of God to mate with the yoslings, for this was deemed to be the most unforgivable of sins. Sound familiar? Remind anyone of Genesis 6, of the fallen? See that? Let's read it again. It was also altogether forbidden for any of the children of God, because over here you have the children of God that seem to be male and female, to mate with the yoslings, for this was deemed to be the most unforgivable of sin. Now the wily one learned much from Astartha, and in the fullness of his time he brought his own son to her, and she became as her son. He became as her son, living in her house and forsaking the ways of his people. He's growing. He's going to spiritually grow. Now, is this going to set an example for his whole tribe, the yoslings all together? Astartha called him Luid, the light bringer, for it was her intention that he should be taught the ways of those who walked in light, that he might in time enlighten his own people. There's a comment I want to read. Sorry if you're not here anymore. Wizard of Oz and What's Behind the Curtain with Dorothy pulling it back. He was a master illusionist. Excellent. Yes, you got it. I was also thinking of the movie, I always forget his name. The Illusionist. Not a bad flick. It was pretty good. It's an older movie now, but movies they make now are not good. And all the B movies that are good, especially the horror ones, the found footage, those are modern day snuff films. And I try to weave little nuggets of truth like that into all my videos to avoid certain people and avoid certain types of censorship. But that's the truth. It's almost time for me to wash my hair. I've got this hemp grease in it, and it's, like, irritating the heck out of me. Okay. Where were we? So it says, Lubid grew up to be tall and handsome. He was quick to learn and become wise. He was also a man of the chase, strong and enduring, a hunter of renown. But there were times when the call of his people was strong. Then he would go out furtively into the night to indulge in their dark rituals. Thus he became knowledgeable in the ways of the flesh and in the carnal indulgences of the body. See, the children of God are different. They don't do those things, right? And this is why they were separated. Although God did say, you are above them. You have charge over them. Like, they still have their free will, but you are here to, help them if they need help or assistance or what have you. And when it comes down to it, I think they have the final say over certain things. Dad Am became the servant of the sacred enclosure where the misty veil between the realms could be penetrated. For all those having the blood of Aura, now again, the first woman who came through the mist we just read about, had twin sight and ability to see wraiths and Sith folk, Ansis and spirit beings, all the things of the other world. Not clearly, but those through the veil. Fascinating. So these people willingly, and they knew because of their ability, they were meant to watch where the veil was thin so that no unauthorized things were taking place or beings were going back and forth, is how I would understand that. Let's see how much is left of this chapter. This is like the longest part of this book. I think I'm going to end it now so that this stays user-friendly and I can take my dogs to the bathroom. Peacocks, they're symbols of resurrection. So we will get back to this book. What I would like to do, for anyone who wants to know, is to read about the youth of Christ all in one video. Or at least have just that in the video because it's a lot. I want to read the Gospel of Thomas, but so many people just read one version and there's 4 different translations, which means there's different minds and fingers in it. So I would like to get them side by side and kind of see what's different. Words matter. Truth matters to me. So I would like one video to be nothing but that. There's going to be a series of videos too in the future because I keep getting these alerts from Academic EDU. We're going to have a series, but not yet, where we look into Mary's history because I would like to prove a couple of my theories on her. And I'm not the only one with these theories about certain things. But I'm not going to say it because I don't want to irritate no one right now. But we're going to look at that a little later. So we're going to finish this, but this isn't going to be the next video. The next video is either going to be the Gospel of Thomas. That's not about current events, right? Or me doing something like that. And I'm also I would like to do an upload about that series that I just watched, that Stephen King series, where it talks about Somalis on there. And I'm not going to mince words right now. The people who are in charge behind the scenes, they either A, have the mentality of children, or B, they are children. Because some of the things that they're doing to fool people, like, I don't know how people are actually buying it. They're taking plots from movies and putting it on like it's really happening in our world. They're just using the script because they don't want us to know what's actually happening. It's not a case of predicted programming either. It's not that. Or trust me, predictive programming is when a certain agenda is repetitive over and over and over again in a variety of different shows or a variety of different mediums because they want it in your head. Much like the alien stuff, right? They want certain things to be second nature. They want us to know how we'll react before it even happens. Muscle memory. They want people doing things and baited into acting before they should actually do something like that. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. But these are some of the things that we're going to be looking at and we're going to be talking about. But I'm always going to try and include like little current events. But that show, what I'm talking about with the Stephen King book and Wuhan, or Dean Koontz, and with the Stephen King book and the Somalis, and then you also have the train crash in East Palestine up the road from me, which I wasn't allowed to go see it. I couldn't get a ride out to go see the actual thing. That was from a movie on Netflix. So this isn't cases of predictive programming. This is them hoping nobody notices that they're stealing scripts and acting like it's real, because everything right now is, most of it is propaganda. They're not going to give you the truth. We have to discern it and read between the lines. And everything is going to be, you know, things that should make us scared, they want us to be more scared. Things that probably are serious threats to us, they won't tell us about, right? Because they don't want certain things to kick off and happen. And in certain ways for national security, I can understand some things. But again, the ones in charge are very juvenile. And so they don't have any creativity. And they don't know how to do propaganda properly. So they're taking these scripts and just putting them up while they go behind the scenes and do things. When everything is done and they have their actual coming out day, like, they're not going to do that until it's secure that they are successful, right? So please understand that there's not going to be any announcement of disclosure. Disclosure happens in small, slow drips. They don't announce when it occurs because disclosure is not good for them. They also hate exposure beyond anything else. These beings hate exposure. Physically, you want to know what they hate? You want to know who you're dealing with? They don't like vinegar. They hate the smell of vinegar. Hate it. Cannot abide by it. Some people even say if you spray it in the air, you can discern certain things like through that veil. But they hate vinegar and they despise lavender, real lavender. It won't grow around them. We're not dealing with people. I don't know how to say it. Like, I don't know how to say it. That's why I'm reading you this story about there being two different branches of humanoids, okay? They're not like us. And they have no compassion. They have no empathy. They literally are a generation of vipers, and I hate to say that because I worked with some of them. I have children in that generation, and I have a lot of good things to say about the kids that I work with, and I haven't worked with them for a year. They were hard workers. They were funny. They were charming. Some of them had good sense of style. They were good with customers. But they're slovenly. They have no apathy, or no compassion and no empathy. And they don't care if you're hurt. Physical pain sometimes they like because it lets them feel something. Because some of them can't anymore. Be aware of who you're dealing with. Observe your loved ones. Love them. Do no harm. But also don't let any harm come to, you or your loved ones, your family. I love you guys. Stay blessed. Pray for discernment. Read between the lines. Everything they say is pretty much inverted, topsy-turvy, inside out. It is the time of inversion. That's where we're at. And it's sad to see, but also have hope. Your words have real power. You are sovereign. The day that I declared aloud, I'm taking my free will back, I could almost hear like a pin be dropped. Words are important. This is why they want to shut us up and not allow us to have a voice. This is why certain people try to encourage other people not to pray aloud. That's not mature. You shouldn't do that. No, in some cases, you need to declare things aloud. I try to drop and sprinkle like all these things that I've learned in the last 5, 7, 8 years into these videos so that the people who really care and are interested and have an attention span still can take this and apply it to their own life. And don't trust me. Don't trust me. Go pray on it. Use your discernment. Use your free will to decide what you're going to believe and how you're going to manage your life. To discern if I'm correct about the things I'm telling you. I get nothing from this. I just want to see us do well as a sentient species. And I want to see us care for those who can't care for themselves. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing. And if we do those things, then blessings will follow. That's why money or monetary gain should not be the main intention or goal. It should be the side effect. Once you're in your lane and you're doing what you were made to do, blessings follow you that way. Okay, I'm going to quit jabbing. You guys have a blessed day. I hope to see you all again. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for chatting, Sheridan. I really appreciate when folks come in here and we can communicate back and forth. Bye, guys.